urge to, to know how, to know how can he, how can he know this knowledge, or how can he attain this knowledge. And then Krishna had you know had talked about this karma yoga, that is the yoga of karma. We all perform karmas, we all perform actions. So if we can perform actions according to karma yoga, that is, the principle of karma yoga was that you have to just keep on, keep on performing your actions, but you should not get uh, attached to the results of the action. And then the results of the action should not be the cause of your action. Like, whenever we think about, uh, you know think about engaging in some activity. So before getting involved into any activity, we calculate what is going to be the outcome. And when we see that the outcome is, is it meets our expectation, that is the time when we start, you know uh, getting into that, getting into that particular action. But Krishna says that it should not be. The actions are always produced within you through nature. So it reveals itself. So whatever action is revealed through you, you should do that without getting attached to the agency, the without getting attached to the karma, or the actions, and the doer of the actions, and the results of the action. It should be always be very clear that while performing actions, we should not be attached to the doer of the action itself, and the results of the action. And when the outcome comes, like every action has got a result. So the result will be either satisfactory, or it will be, dissatisfactory. Something which will be, which will be expected or unexpected. Something which will be, good for us, or which will not be that, you know or which will not be good for us. So in any case, whatever the outcome is, we should treat, them to be the same. Like if I have a result of an action which is really, pleasing, so I have to accept that result also, which is not so pleasing, in the same way as I am accepting the results, which pleases me. So this is how, this is what karma yoga is all about. And then Krishna talks about that, there are many informations, there are many, when you go into this external world, there is chaos, there is, means many informations, there is a lot of, there are a lot of chaos, there's a lot of, this vibration going on. So in all these, if you can keep your, if you can keep your mind firm, and you can keep doing your job, whatever job you're doing, if you can keep, moving forward in the path you're moving. So in that way, you can attain the state of samadhi, or and by attaining the state of samadhi, you can, you can attain the state of yoga, that is union with the self. So this is where we had stopped in our last class. So now from here we are going to start. So when, Krishna had said this, that, if your mind is always firm, if your mind is always calm within the, chaos of this world, if you are not getting deluded with all this information that you receive from everywhere, both spiritual or worldly, in case, these informations, this whatever it comes within you, if you can stay firm, and you can just keep, moving in the direction that you have to, and and have chosen to, that is the time when you attain the state of samadhi. And you, yeah, and by doing this, you attain the state of yoga, that is union with the self. So when he had said this, then Arjuna had a question. And this question actually delighted Lord Krishna, because till now, it was Lord Krishna who was continuously talking. He saw that Arjuna was deluded, and Arjuna, seeked his help, his, advice. How can he come out of this? And he was, he was just going on with his teachings, but he was not sure whether Arjuna is absorbing it or not, or if he is absorbing, how much it is working within him. He was not sure. So this question really helped him, because made him happy, because he could see that the knowledge that he is trying to impart into the mind of Arjuna is working. And when the knowledge works within you, then you have questions, then you have doubts. So, this question was what Arjuna had asked. So we are starting from now. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha, samadhi sthasya keshava, sthita di kim prabhasheta, kimasita brajeta kim. So this was the question that Arjuna had asked. What is the meaning? What is the meaning? It says, Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha. When a man becomes enlightened, and he when he becomes one with the divine. So when he becomes one with the divine, then he comes back with the knowledge of the divine into this duality. The first journey was from duality to the non-dual self, to that unity. When he reached that state of non-duality, when he reached the state of the divine, where there is no matter at all, it's all consciousness, it's only consciousness. So when he reached into the state of consciousness or super consciousness, then he came back from there again into this material world. When he comes into this material world, then the past impressions that he had, the remnants of the earlier mind, they again starts to work within him. But because he had already experienced the self, or he had already experienced what is called enlightenment. So that experience guides him not to get deluded in this world. But though he is not deluded, still there is this remnants of the mind and the past impression which works its own part. So though this man is enlightened, but or though this man has experienced that non-dual self, but because of the presence of the earlier mind, and because of the presence of the past impression, he sometimes he forgets about his experience, and he starts to dwell into this world exactly in the way he used to in the previously. But with time and with practice of yoga, this mind, this earlier mind, or this old mind, with all its habits, with all its past impression, they they slowly or gradually they gets cleaned up. So at one time, after practicing diligently this yoga, he can see that there is no mind at all. The earlier mind, he does not find that earlier mind. And when he doesn't find that earlier mind, all the past impressions, they also fade away. So this man is completely steadfast in knowledge. In every condition, wherever he is and whatever he is doing, he is always situated in knowledge, established in knowledge, is guided by the knowledge. And there is no way that he can be deluded anymore, because now there is no presence of the mind. The mind itself has become consciousness. There is no matter at all, because with the practice of yoga, he could see that matter does not exist. Whatever exists is mind. So is consciousness. So he becomes conscious with that with that consciousness. So this person who is established in that, consciousness, absolute consciousness, while being in this life, doing all his duties, his works, living his life the way he used to, this person is called, sthita pragya. That is, his wisdom is completely established. He is established in the wisdom, he is established in knowledge. So Arjuna's first question was this: what is the definition of being a sthita pragya? What is the definition of, what is the definition of being, somebody who is steadfast in knowledge, who is, established in consciousness? So this was his first question. And then samadhi sthasya keshava. And what is this samadhi that you talked about? Because, in the earlier words, Krishna said that a person who is, who is firm in the midst of, all the informations or all the chaos or all the, vibrations that comes across, still he remains, calm, and he maintains his silence, his cool. So this person, with the attainment of samadhi, he attains yoga. So he asks, what is this samadhi all about? What is called samadhi? So samadhi, this is a state of our life. We only know three stages of our life, or three states of our life. That is consciousness, subconsciousness, and unconsciousness. These are the three things that we know. We don't know, there is another state which is called super consciousness. Now, what is conscious state? Conscious state means, I am, the conscious state is now, we are all conscious about our surroundings. I'm aware about, I'm aware about my surroundings, and I am aware about myself. Now here, myself means my mind, or my ego, or my body, or my thoughts, my actions. So these are all what I term as myself. So when I say that I am conscious about the mind, I am conscious about the intellect, I am conscious about the ego, I am conscious about my thoughts, I am conscious about my, about all the informations that is, pouring into my mind through my senses. I'm conscious about this external world. So this is what I say as consciousness. Then there is another, another state which is called subconsciousness. That is our dreaming state. In the subconscious mind, our external world does not exist. We lose connection with the external world, but this external world is also present within our internal world, internal world, and that, that is called the mind. So in the mind, there is a, there is a space called subconscious mind. That is, whatever mind we are aware is a fraction of the total mind. We cannot see the full mind. We can only see a very, small portion of the mind. And the larger portion is always, unmanifested. They are there, but I cannot see. It is revealed to me sometimes. Like we dream things which we have never experienced or come across. These are all, very like strange dreams. When we dream strange things, we think that, how did I dream this? How can I relate with that? There's no way that I can relate with it. But if I have dreamt this, that means that it was somewhere within me. It has not come. When I dream, I don't keep my eyes open and I see the external world. It is what I see within myself. So, the dreams that I have is the things that are already present within me, which I was not aware of. So these dreams are, are nothing but my exploration into my subconscious mind. So, this state of dreaming, when I explore my subconscious mind, is called subconsciousness. So the first thing was consciousness, and then there is this subconsciousness, and the third one is unconsciousness. Like I sleep. When I sleep, when there is no dreams at all, when I have this dreamless sleep, then I am not conscious about this external world. I am not conscious about this, subconscious mind. Neither am I conscious about myself. In the state of subconsciousness, I am aware about, about this subconscious world and the observer of this subconscious world, that is me. But in the state of unconsciousness, I am not aware about, either the world, the subconscious world, or the observer of these two worlds. And that is why this state is called, unconsciousness. And these are the three states in which we dwell. We do not know any other states apart from this. Now, Vedanta says that there is another state, and that state is called the state of super consciousness or Samadhi. What happens in the state of super consciousness? When I am in the state of consciousness, I am, perceiving everything through consciousness. Every object that I perceive it through consciousness. But while I am, in the process of perception, I can only, perceive the object. I cannot, I cannot perceive the knowledge or the consciousness by which I am, I am having this perception. In another word, I am not conscious about the consciousness, for which I am conscious. So, in the state of consciousness or super or subconsciousness or unconsciousness, in all these three states, we are using the same consciousness, but we are not aware about this consciousness. We are only aware about external matter or internal matter. Internal matter and external matter is nothing but this, is the same thing. It's only, it's only in the form. Internal matter is a subtle form of the gross external matter. So whatever is present within me, in my subconscious mind or in my mind, is being projected in the external world. And then I see the gross form of my internal world or my, or my mind. So, the object which is present outside is also present within my mind in the form of, in the form of thought. It's in the form of thought. So, in case of in case of consciousness or subconsciousness or unconsciousness, I am aware about these objects, but I am not aware about the consciousness which is making it possible for me to perceive these objects. In the state of super consciousness, I become aware about this consciousness. And when I become aware about this consciousness, then I see that these objects that I have been perceiving, this name and form, these attributes, these attributes, all this, all this variety of things, they had never existed. The only thing that has existed ever, and the only thing which is existing now, and the only thing that is going to exist forever, eternally, is this, absolute consciousness, which is one. And because it is one, it is infinite. So this is the only reality. So in the state of super consciousness, I come across the reality of my being. And it is not about my own being. It is also the being of this entire universe. Everything is the consciousness. And the consciousness is manifesting itself in the form of, matter, in the form of human beings, in the form of animals, in the form of everything. but it's only the consciousness. There is no existence of anything other than this consciousness. So this is what I experience in the state of super consciousness. When I become conscious about the consciousness by which I perceive everything, then I see that there is nothing to perceive. There is nothing to perceive, because there is, there is no existence of nothing other than this consciousness. So the only thing which needs to be, the only thing which needs to be perceived is this consciousness. And when I perceive this consciousness, I see this consciousness to be myself. When I think about myself, I think about myself as a name, as a form. I think about myself as the attributes, the actions that I do. I think myself, with respect to the external world, with my family, with my father, with my mother, with respect, in relation to everything, which is surrounding me. But when I attain the state of super consciousness, I see that I am not related to anything. I am that absolute. I do not have any name and form, because this name and form does not exist at all. It's all delusion. The only reality is the self. So this is what we experience at the state of Samadhi. We experience our own real nature. What is our real nature? This is the real nature. We are all divine. We are consciousness. So that is what Arjuna was asking. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhi sthasya keshava. What is the state of Samadhi? And sthitadi kim prabhasheta. How does these people who are enlightened, who are steadfast in knowledge, they talk, they converse? Kima sita, how do they live? And brajeta kim, how do they move around? So this was the question which Arjuna had asked to Krishna. And from now, these 18 verses, which is going to answer these questions. These 18 verses are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. When we study Bhagavad Gita further, we will see that this Bhagavad Gita is just the extension of these 18 verses. Of this, whatever we discussed now, this is just the extension. The Bhagavad Gita is the extension of this. So, when Krishna is responding to this question, he responds it in two ways. One is with respect to the world. How, one is, by the way we can relate to ourselves. And the other is in the spiritual, is from the spiritual aspect. But if we can relate, whatever he has said about, about this material world, about our world, our practical world, if we can relate with this, and if we can, do exactly what he had said to do in this practical world, then, obviously and automatically we will be connected with that, this spiritual world. So Krishna says, hello.
Yes, it's okay now.
What happened?
Your connection.
Now is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now is it okay?
Yeah, okay. It's okay now.
So he says that, when he's talking about this, when he's responding to his question, then he is responding it according to the, first of all, he is saying this with respect to this world. And if we can, if we can do exactly what he says with respect to the external world, then we automatically move into another world, and that is called the spiritual world. And when we move into that spiritual world, then we see that this, state which he is talking about, Samadhi, is so obvious. It's so obvious. So he says Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. Atmannaivatmana tushta stita pragyastadocchate. He says that, when a person, can separate himself from all the, from all the desires that his mind is creating constantly. If you see the mind, what is a mind? When you see the mind is the cluster of thoughts. All the thoughts that we have, grouped together is called the mind. So when we say, when, if we take one thought, if we take any thought from the mind, we will see that every thought that we have is a desire, is a necessity. It's a necessity, it's a wish. So the mind, is creating thoughts. The mind is creating thoughts, and these thoughts are nothing but desires. So the mind is always creating desires. And that is what Krishna says, that when a person can separate himself from all the desires that his mind is creating, if you can separate yourself from all the desires that your mind is creating. Now, how to separate yourself from all the desires that your mind is creating? The first thing is to observe. If you can observe your mind, very carefully, then you will see that, your thoughts gets faded away. And when your thoughts get faded away, these thoughts are nothing but desires. So the desires also gets, faded away. They don't stay. So the first way of separating yourself from the mind, from the desires which are created by the mind, is to be able to observe your mind. Now, if you cannot observe your mind, your mind is very chaotic, it's very fast, and there is no way that you can observe your mind. Now, what to do? If it is like that, then the other way is to meditate, is to concentrate in one point. And as much as you meditate, you will see that your mind is getting rid of these desires. Your mind is getting rid of these thoughts. And at one stage, you will see that you have reached that state of thoughtlessness. You have become thoughtless. So, when you become thoughtless, that means you have separated yourself from all the desires that the mind is creating, because these thoughts are nothing but desires. So the next one is meditation. Then by chanting a mantra, or by chanting the name of God, if you chant, with full concentration, your mind is not wavering here or there. You are fully concentrated in one point, chanting one mantra. Then also you will see that you have gotten rid of the desires. So, or if you can come to a guru or a master, if you can stay close to a master, just by staying close to him, if he is a real master, you will see the desires that you have will start to diminish. So, Krishna says that a person who can separate himself from all the desires that his mind is creating, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. When you can separate yourself from all the desires that your mind is creating, and then now when you separate yourself from the desires, what happens? You separate yourself from the mind. Now, when you separate yourself from the mind, then what happens? You become yourself. You yourself is consciousness. You yourself is knowledge. You yourself is divine, eternal, pure. Now, when you can disconnect yourself from the mind, that is the time when you connect with yourself, with your divine pure self. And when you connect with your divine pure self, you only feel peace. You only feel satisfied. You only feel joy. And when you feel this joy, which is causeless, which does not have any reason why this joy is all about, why you are feeling this peace. There's no reason for feeling this peace, this causeless peace. So when you can, feel this peace, this joy of being with yourself, you know, that is that is called to be steadfast in knowledge. So you can practice this. You can practice this, and you will see automatically you will attain the state of yoga. The first thing is you need to separate yourself from the thoughts. As you can separate yourself from the thoughts, thoughts are only desires. So when you can separate yourself from the thoughts, then you can see that you have separated yourself from the mind. And when the mind is gone, when you have separated yourself from the mind, when you don't see any mind, when you see that the mind is gone, then you see that, that you are getting absorbed into your own entity, your own existence, your own self. And that self is not what you think about. You perceive yourself as a body, as a name, as a form. When you start to experience yourself, you see that you are metaphysical, you are nameless, you are formless, you are, you don't have any attributes. You are that consciousness which is projecting this world. You are that substratum. So, when you feel this, when you feel yourself, that is the time when you see that I am not only this existence, I am not only this knowledge, I am also happiness, I am also joy, I am also peace. But this happiness, this joy, this peace, this bliss is causeless. It does not have any cause. I am bliss by nature. I am peace by nature. I'm happiness, I'm joy by nature. This is my nature. So I don't need anything to feel it. It's always there. So this causeless, this causeless happiness, this causeless bliss, this causeless peace is also experienced. And when a person experiences this, then he becomes satisfied. He sees that whatever he was searching till date, that search has come to a completion, because he was not searching money, he was not searching power, he was not searching any worldly things. He was actually searching happiness, peace, love, completeness, freedom. He was searching this, and that is what he got when he dived into himself. When he dived into himself, then he got what he was searching forever. And this person is called to be, steadfast in knowledge. Because once he has separated himself from this mind, and he has gone, within himself, he has absorbed within his own identity, then he does not come back into this world. So what does it mean he does not come back into this world? Doesn't he do any work? Doesn't he do any, does it, leave everything and just go somewhere else? Or he just spends his time alone? It's not like that. He does not come into this world means, he does not get deluded again into this mind. Whatever he does, wherever he is, he always knows that he is the self, his consciousness. He's not the, he is not the one which he used to perceive about himself. So when he's working, he knows that he's not working. It is the work, it is the actions which are getting, manifested through him. He's not the actions, he's not the doer, and he's not the results of the actions also. And that is why he does not get attached to any of them. When he's talking, when he's dwelling into this world, he knows that he is not the mind. Though he sees the mind, he uses the mind, but he sees the mind, he uses the mind, but he always knows that he is not the mind, he's not the thoughts, he's not the desires. When we see our thought, we see the thoughts, we think that these are our thoughts, is our, we are part of this, or these thoughts are part of us. And that is why we run after them. But a person who has realized the self, the person who has, who has realized who he is, he knows that, these thoughts, these desires which the mind is creating, this is not a part of me. It is separate from me always. Always. It's not, it was never a part of me, and it never will be. It is separated from me. And because of this, though he sees the mind, he does not get attached to them. He does not get involved into mental stuff. And because he does not get attached to the mind again, that is why he is steadfast in knowledge. He is guided by the knowledge. Always, in every respect, in every aspect of his life, is guided by this knowledge. And that is why all the works that he does, they become very, powerful. They become very meaningful, because before he was guided by his mind or the desires, but now he is not guided by the desires or the mind. He is guided by knowledge. So when he is guided by knowledge, every action that he partakes, these actions has a great significance, not only to him, but to everybody around him. And, this is a constant source of happiness. His work, his being, his life becomes a constant source of happiness to him. He does not need happiness for anything, from anywhere. He is the source. He becomes the source of this happiness. So this was the first answer that Krishna gave. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmannevatmana tushta sthita pragyastato uchate. If you really want to, attain enlightenment, the first thing that you need to do is to separate yourself from the desires. When you separate yourself from the desires, you see that you have come a long way from your mind, from your ego, from all the perceptions that you had about yourself, from all the imaginations that you had about yourself. And when you have come, when you have separated yourself from the mind, then you see that automatically you have connected yourself, you have connected with yourself, your real identity, your absolute, your actual identity, your actual nature. And when you have connected with your actual nature, that is the time when you realize how beautiful you are, how divine and eternal you are, how important you are to yourself. And because you understand this, and you start to feel this, this bliss and peace that you are, you become more and more absorbed into that, and you become satisfied. And this state is called the state of being steadfast in knowledge. So this was the first answer that Krishna gave. Now, this is a principle. This is what you need to do. While if you want to get enlightenment, this is what you need to do. Now he is talking about a very practical thing. We all come across good and bad times. This is very practical. So we can attain the state of enlightenment through this life itself. We don't need to meditate. We don't need to practice spirituality separately. Whatever life we have in our hands, if we can go through this life the way it has been said, then we see that we have attained the state of enlightenment. So Krishna says, the next verse is Dukheshu anudvigna mana Sukheshu vigata spriha Beeta raga bhaya krodha stitadhi muni ruchate. He says that, life is full of challenges. In your life, you are not going to attain success only. You will have failures. You expect something and then you get something else. You get exactly the opposite. So there will be adversities in your life. And this is a reality. This is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. All the other spiritual texts starts from this point, by denying this world. If you don't deny this world, you cannot approach all the spiritual texts, they deny this world. They say that this world is Maya, this world is dream. So you don't need to think about this world. So once you have disconnected yourself from this external world or your mind, then the spiritual teaching starts. But in case of Bhagavad Gita, he have very well acknowledged that life is all about struggle. This life is also important. This life is also a reality. It's not a non-real, though it is not real, still for a person who is going through this life, that is real. And that is why it acknowledges the struggle that human being does, It acknowledges all the pains, sufferings, agonies that we suffer, we face during our, our time into this life while we go through these sufferings. So he says, Dukheshu anudvignamana, when there will be sufferings, when you will have, adverse condition, you're not going to have, everything which you want, or everything which you desire, or everything which you expect. There will be many things which will happen exactly the opposite, the way you want. So in all these cases, you need to be very, very, very firm. You should not be anxious. Dukheshu anudvignamana. In adversity, you should not be anxious. You should not be anxious. You should not be disturbed. You should not be distracted. You should not freak out. You should always face the situation, accept it with happiness, with joy, with pleasure. That is what it says, that when you are in the state of adversity, you should not run away from that. We run away because we are afraid. We are suffering from anxiety, from a very, from something, we perceive something which does not exist. We perceive some catastrophe which does not exist. And that is why we all are in the state of anxiety. Krishna says that when you are in the state of, adversity, never be anxious. Face it, accept it. So this is number one. Number two is Sukeshu Bigatas Priya. Now when we have success, when we see things which is happening according to how we want it to happen, what we expect, what we aspire, when we see that things are happening like that, what we do is we go and hold it. We go and hold it, and we want it to become permanent. We get attached to that. But this is not going to stay, because as sufferings did not stay, so this good time, this happiness, this is also not going to stay. So if you become attached with this, then you are going to be attached to unhappiness also, which is following this. The reason why we cannot get rid of our sufferings is also because we get attached to our pleasure. We get attached to happiness. Because we get attached to happiness, this attachment stays. And when the happiness goes, we get attached to sadness. Because happiness and sadness is a passing phenomenon, but the attachment becomes our habit. The attachment that we develop, that becomes our habit. So we not only get attached to happiness, we also start to get attached to unhappiness, to sadness also. And that is the reason why people cannot get rid of sadness. They keep them inside them and hurting them, harming them. So you should not be attached when you are having success, when you are having pleasure, when you are having happiness. If you can practice this, then you will see that you will never be unhappy. So Dukheshu Anudvignamana, when you have sorrow, don't be anxious. And when you have happiness, don't try to be attached to that. Don't try to hold it. And then he talks about some qualities which we need to, inculcate within ourselves. What is that? Bhita raga bhaya krodha. You should not have attachment to anything. Now, how can I get rid of attachment? The only way and the very effective way to get rid of attachment is not to get attached to the actions that we do. Don't think about any other thing. Don't think about getting rid of attachment, separately. I'm attached to this, and I need to get separate from all this. You don't need to do that. You are attached to your actions. You are attached to your actions because you think that you are doing these actions for your benefit. But the reason why you are doing these actions are that these actions are getting manifested through you. You are not the doer. You are not the doer. But because you think that it's me who is doing these actions, that is why you get attached to not only the doer, but also to the actions and to the results of the actions. So when you are performing actions, like now you are listening, this is also an action that you are doing. I am speaking, this is an action that I'm doing. Whatever action you do, any simplest action that you do, try to have this, perception. Try to have this perception that you are not the doer. So when you have this perception that you are not the doer, you will see that you will not be attached to the doership. You will not be attached to the actions that you do, that you perform, as well as you will not be attached to the results of this action. So you will be separate from the actions, the doer of the actions, and the results of the actions. And when you can separate yourself from these three, you will see that there is nothing in this world with which you are attached. Because this attachment starts with the attachment of this doership. I am the doer. I am the one who is the doer. The attachment starts from here. This is the cause of all attachments. This ego, I am the doer. I am the one. I am the one. This attachment, this ego is the cause of attachment. Now, when I separate from the doer, means, I am not separating from the doer. I am actually separating from the ego. And when I am separating myself from the ego, I am separating myself from all attachment, because it is the ego which goes and gets attached. Because I think I am the ego, that is why I get attached. Now, when I know that I am not the ego, and I can separate myself from the ego, then I see I don't have any attachment anywhere. I'm free. So this is what you need to practice. Be the raga. You need to be aware that you are not the doer while you are performing actions. Okay, this process will enable you not to be attached to the actions as well as the results of the actions. This will enable you to always remain free from all attachments, that I am not the doer. Then Bhita raga bhaya. Bhaya means, fear. What is fear? Fear means it is a reaction of the mind. It is the first reaction of the mind to any foreign, any unfamiliar situation. Like any unfamiliar situation, which is good or bad. It's not only, we are scared when there is things which we don't like, when there is things which are bad for us. It's not like that. In many good things also we get scared. Like something good is happening, we get scared. Why? Because we are not used to that. And because we are not used to that, we get scared. So be the raga bhaya. Bhaya means, you need to, always face your fear. When the fear appears, we run away. We close our eyes and we run away. We fear. But when the fear comes, face it. see what is the cause of fear. When you try to search the cause of fear, you will see that there is nothing to be scared about. There's nothing to be there's nothing to be fearful. This fear is our greatest delusion. And that is why, that is why you need to face your fear. And when you face your fear, you become fearless. And that is what it says. You need to become fearless if you want to, have steadfast in knowledge. Not only you should, get rid of all your attachments, but you should get rid of this, habit of being scared. Okay? Bhita raga bhaya. And then krodha, that is anger. Anger is a very, very strong energy. And this anger can destroy everything, good or bad. We need to control this anger so that this anger becomes knowledge. And the moment we can control our anger, we will see this anger is such a bliss. It has become knowledge. It has become very strong knowledge, and it has melted all the all these negative energies that we had in our mind. It has melted the ego. With the control of anger. If you can control your anger, you will see that the best thing that will happen to you is this, that the anger, when controlled, will melt your mind, will melt your ego. It will just melt. And if your ego is melted, it becomes love. When your mind is melted, it becomes knowledge. Okay? So you need to control your anger also. So if you can do that, Bhita raga bhaya krodha, if you can get rid of your attachments, if you can get rid of your fear and your anger, sthita dhi muni ruchyate, then only you become that enlightened soul whose knowledge is steadfast. Okay? So, if there is any question you can ask, or you should practice this, whatever we have discussed, because this is very important. And we'll discuss further in our next class. Do you have any question? Okay, so let's meditate. Joseph, are you there?
Swamiji.
Yeah.
That was just like 5 or 6 things.
Oh, here it goes. Sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah.
No, I was just saying, like, about 5 or 6 different things that you said were just like perfect, resonated with what I needed to. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph.
In the beginning of your talk, you had mentioned that Arjuna had risen to enlightenment, but then the old habits of his mind returned, and I'm curious if you could put what was happening to Arjuna in the context that you just discussed of consciousness, subconsciousness, unconsciousness, and the movement towards super consciousness. Where was Arjuna when he achieved enlightenment, or self-knowledge, self-awareness, and now his old habits are coming back? Where is he in this process?
Actually, Bhagavad Gita is an event. It's an event when Arjuna was in the process of getting enlightened. So, when we are studying Bhagavad Gita, there Arjuna is not enlightened. But at the end of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna had delivered the full knowledge, like now he has started to speak about the mind. He started to speak about the various stages of the mind and to go beyond that. So when he has delivered his full teachings, then Krishna asked him that did your darkness of your mind get dispelled? Did your did your did your this katham agyanam sammoha vinashtaste dhananjaya. That is, did your ignorance get destroyed? So this was what Krishna had asked, at the end of this, at the end of Bhagavad Gita. And then Krishna said that yes, I could see who I am. Nashta moha smritil labdhat tat prasadena mayachyuta. My ignorance has gone. Ignorance means, when your eyes are closed or they're covered. You have that self, you have the self-knowledge always within you. But because that self-knowledge is blocked by the ego, this ego, that false recognition of I. We all have this false recognition of I. The I that we talk about, the I that we recognize as ourselves, this is not the actual I. This is not the actual I. This is a distraction. The actual I is just beyond this I. And this false I blocks that real I. Okay? So, though we have this knowledge within us, or we are that knowledge, still, this knowledge is blocked. Now, with spirituality, what does spirituality mean? Spirituality means to discover who I am. The only question with which spirituality deals is, who are you? Whenever you say yourself, whenever you talk about yourself, you talk about everything that is yours. You cannot say which is you. You see, your head, your eyes, your body, your hands, everything is yours. Okay? Now, leave the body. Then come to the mind, my mind. That is also your mind. That is also not you. Your intellect, your ego, your happiness, your sadness, your thoughts, your desire, everything is yours. Where is that you? Where is that person? That person is never, that person is never seen. And there is some other, there's some other bad guy who, who sits in that place of my, in my place. And he appears to be me. But in reality, it's not me. So, when you search yourself, you see that everything is yours. There is nothing which you can say, this is me. There's nothing you can say. My body, my mind, everything is mine. Where is me? Where is me? We don't find me. So finding this me, finding this I is all about spirituality. When you find this I, then you see that you have been living in such a great delusion forever. This world that you think is so true, this world that you think is so real. When you see yourself, then you see that this world is not real. And that is the only time when you can actually get success in this world, because, till you know that this world is real, you cannot achieve success. You cannot achieve happiness, because you will be affected by everything that is happening in this world. Because for you, everything is true, but nothing is true. It's just a process of this evolution is just, a process of making me aware about who I am. The only purpose of this whole evolution is to make me aware about who I am. In every respect, the nature is directing us towards who we are, but we don't see that. We don't see that, because we see everything from our own perspective. From we see everything from the perspective of my mind, and because my mind is only desires, so my perspective about this world is to complete these desires. And that is why I don't see the real nature. I don't see the real, real world. Because whatever I see it from my own perspective. And my perspective depends upon the state of my mind. And my mind is nothing but desires. So my perspective is how to complete my desires, how best I can use this nature so that my desires are complete. This is what my life is all about. And this is what the life is all about for everybody in this world. And that is why today we have landed up in such a big problem, this coronavirus and this and the small virus. We don't have, we have spent, millions and millions of dollars in making, weapons for mass destruction. But today everything is everything is just a rubbish, because we cannot fight with something which is not even a living being, which is a half living being. We cannot fight with that. Everywhere
it sounded like you said, sorry, Swamiji. It sounded like you said mass distraction at first. It sounded like you said mass distraction. And I was thinking this is what you're talking about. Mass distraction leads to mass destruction. Yeah?
Yeah. Means, this tendency of mass destruction, nobody can destroy the mass. Though we can create, this stockpile of nuclear bombs and whatever, but you cannot destroy this. This world has got its own rhythm. It's got its own momentum. It's got its own, way of doing work. So I can think that I can just destroy everything, but I cannot. I will be destroyed. Hitler wanted to destroy everything. He got destroyed. And everybody who wanted to destroy things could not destroy anything. They got destroyed, they got eliminated. And because we have always thought about, destroying him, them. And that is why today we are in the brink of mass destruction. Not only from this virus, but from this, from this nature also. The nature is also like very, very angry with us. Everywhere you can see this earthquake, floods, and everything is happening. The volcanoes, everywhere, and something is happening. Something is happening which is not good, which is bringing destruction only to human beings. Because it is the human beings alone who wanted to destroy everything and leave. And today, everything, the whole nature will bring human being to its toes. Because this is the law. This is the law.
And the nature, this virus is really causing us to realize that we can't control nature. We live in this environment that is created for us,
Yeah. You can control
it's
nature
created
only
for us.
when... Yes, it's created for us, yes.
And so we start to believe that we can always control nature. And this virus is showing us that even in the very developed areas, even anywhere in the world, we are all connected. And we are all, at the mercy of nature. We have to, we're not above nature. We have to learn this in a very painful way right now. And I hope it will teach us something, because when I came back, I was in Asia for 3.5 years total. And I came back, about 6 months ago. And when I look around, and these things you're describing are especially in the U.S. and the U.S. having the influence and the power that it has, it echoes around the world. And when I come here, there's just so much aggression and ego-driven culture and this obsession with property and holding things, building up my identity, and my car is part of, what I am, and this kind of thing. And it becomes so clear to me. I saw it before, but it's even more clear now that I come back. And this thing results in this, like you say, disconnection from nature, this delusion. It's just so strong, and it's difficult for me to be here, to be honest, for that reason. But You know, when I was living in New York City, I lived in New York City for about 5 years, and I
Yeah.
was I was in my car on the highway trying to get on the Brooklyn Bridge, and I was sitting there for a long time. The traffic was going, but the line was not moving. When I got to the front, I found people are cutting in front. You know, they are cutting in front, and they're not waiting in the line. And I think this is the way New York City and American society and the influence of American culture is. I know I'm getting political, but that we will cut in front of others, we'll take from others for ourselves. You know, that it's just about us. It's about me and my property, and this all comes back to colonialism also. You know, when I come here, this place, not like India, not like, you know, Thailand or other places in Asia. The people came here, they took from others, and we're still dealing with that. You know. Uh, anyway, I'm going on other topics, but I just see a lot of what you're talking about. And Swamiji, I want to thank you for this talk, because really, a lot of things in my personal life, I really need to hear a lot of the things you're saying. I have heard them in the past in different ways, and I need to hear them right now. And so thank you for sharing that with me. I will say one more time, in fact, I think this is the first talk that I went to in Brooklyn when we first met, and you were talking on, of course, the Bhagavad Gita, and I had a similar thought about, you know, neti neti, which is what you're describing now, versus iti iti. And both, you know, the iti iti is much more difficult, of course, but I always try to remember that when you find that oneness, that you are all of these things also, but you first have to go through this process, I think is your opinion. You have to go through this process of neti neti first, of I'm not that, not that, not that, and then you can
Yeah.
realize that you are
Yeah.
one with everything, right?
Yes. Yes, and Joseph, the reason why we are doing this class is because we also realize, that people need more to listen about this, particularly Bhagavad Gita, because this is very practical.
Mm,
It talks about our life. It does not, it does not deny this, the struggles that we have. It does not deny everything, which is around. Means when the Bhagavad Gita had happened, the world was similar to what the world is today. There were everywhere. There was like chaos, anarchy. You know, people were scared. People were scared. People were all. Most of them were corrupted. People didn't know what to do, how to do, where to approach, whom to approach. There was complete chaos, and that resulted in this, great Indian war, which is called Mahabharata. That is, all the kings they
mm,
they gathered together in a place called Kurukshetra to fight it out, to prove who is right and who is wrong, because they could not do it with dialogue, with logic. They could not come to a solution to peace through logic. And you know how the situation can be that, though we are talking about peace, we could not come to peace through dialogue, through logic, or through this, great scriptures, or this great, knowledge that we have in India. They had to fight. And who are the people who are fighting? All of them are very, 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 high class, people with high class morale, people with high class character. They are there, to fight. So it is not so easy to
mm,
understand. Every time the world has come to this point where it seems that the world is going to end, but then something changes and something saves. What does it change, and what does, who saves it? It is this, this urge to know the truth, which actually changes this world, which actually saves this world. That is why we need to,
mm,
take this knowledge to every corner of this world, so that people can at least listen. You know, we are not seeking followers. We are trying to make people listen. Just listen to this, and then you decide. Because this is all about you. It's not about Arjuna. It's not about Krishna. It's not about those people. It's about us, our life, how to make it better, how to get rid of
mm,
this, this everything that is happening around us, and how to cope up with the situation. Cope up with the situation. And I found Bhagavad
mhm,
Gita very, very effective in every aspect of our life. If you want to have a spiritual insight, Bhagavad Gita is the best way. If you want to have, a perspective of how to deal with all the sufferings that we have, then Bhagavad Gita also is the best book, And are you doing the same thing, like you are working with uh, uh, the people in the jail? Are you doing the same thing there?
No. After because I was traveling for a very long time, so I was not working, and I haven't been working, but I'm actually starting to look for a job today. So I will be doing the same mental health work. That's my field is clinical psychology. So I'll be doing that work, but I won't be doing it in a jail probably. I might be, but it's a little dangerous right now because of the virus. I'm going to see how I can do my work and still stay safe,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I'll be looking for a job starting now. Um, I just wanted to ask you about the reason I ask about Arjuna and his where he was at in terms of having the realization about his consciousness, but then coming back with the old habits of his mind, is because I see myself doing that, and I think maybe you already answered my question when you talked about Krishna's advice to separate yourself from your thoughts and desires, and so maybe that is the thing I should do if I find myself in the old habits of the mind, to do that once again, to separate myself from the thoughts and desires. Is that right?
Though it seems to be very easy, but it's not so easy. I will, if you really want to do that, I can tell you something. You start to chant a little bit of mantra for some time, because
Okay.
to separate yourself from the desires, you need to have a very calm mind. You need to have a control over your mind. If you don't have a control over your mind, you cannot separate yourself from the desire, because the desires are very powerful. It's not easy. It's not easy. Indriyani pramathini haranti prasavamana. Even for the enlightened soul, they can deviate the enlightened soul also. So it's not so easy. So if you really want to gain control over your mind, there are some very uh, very simple ways. Okay, there are very simple ways. The first thing is breathing. You can start with this, from the very beginning, like breathing exercise. Breathe in, hold the breath, and breathe out. Like, when we breathe, we are not aware the importance of breathing. Now, if you see, when you are happy, you will see your breathing is different. When you're sad, your breathing is very heavy, it's very heavy, it's very cold. When you're angry, your breathing becomes very, very warm, and you start to breathe very fast. So, our breathing changes with the different emotions of our life. Okay. If I have this emotion, my breathing will be like this. If I have that emotion, my breathing will be like this. Now, the way the breathing changes with emotion, in the same way, emotions also change if I regulate my breathing. This is what, yoga tells, it's not only the breathing which changes with emotion, it's vice versa. So if I cannot control my emotions, I can at least control my breathing. So if I can control my breathing, I will see I have gained control over my emotions or my mind. Okay. So now, how to do this? So this breathing has three parts. One is you breathe in, then you hold for some time, and then you release it. We also do this, but this happens very fast, so we are not aware about this. Like, we are not aware about the thoughts that we have, like we think all the time, but we are not aware that we are in the process of thinking, or we are in the process of doing activities all the time. We think that we are only active at some point in our life, and the other, in our day, and other times we are inactive. But actually we are active all the time until you are, from the time you are awake to the time you go to sleep, you are always doing work which we are not aware about. So, in the same way, when we breathe in, there is a pause, and then we breathe out. But because this happens without our conscious, our awareness, we do not get, this. But if we can do this process with being aware about breathing, if we can, if you can do this process by being aware, then they really have a very big effect in controlling our mind. So the breathing in, I'm breathing in. This process is called purak. Okay, I'm breathing in. It's called purak. Then I'm holding the breath within myself for some time. This is called, kumbhak. And then after some time, I'm releasing my breath. Okay, then. So, and then I'm releasing my breath. So, this happens, now I will do it slowly. Like I will count like 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And till I count 10, I will breathe in slowly, I will breathe in slowly and I will count 10. Okay? When 10 is complete, then I have to stop there. I stop there again for 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I stop. I hold the breathing. And then I release the breathing again, with these 10 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can do this exercise, as much as possible till we meet the next week, or you can, text me and we can discuss how to approach further. Okay? But start with this breathing exercise. That will help
When
you
you were talking
physically.
about, I will try it. I will do that. And
That will
when
help
you were
you
talking about this,
yes.
when you were talking about this, I just remembered something you told me on the train to when we were on the train was you don't have to be always I think it was always aware forever. You just aware for this moment, and now you're
Yeah.
aware for this moment, and this
Yes.
that also really helped me a lot. That's why I remember it. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Swamiji.